southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with a friendly.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome back. We're going to jumpstart the morning with our Board of Health special meeting of January 19th, 2023. Today's meeting is for the purpose of approving the 2023 Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit operating budget. I'd like to remind everyone that our meetings are web streamed and televised, and I would ask you to ensure your phones are on silent. With that, I call the special meeting of the Board of Health to order, and we'll go right into approval of the agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Duthie, seconded by Councillor Huffman. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, staff report 5.1, proposed 2023 Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit operating budget. We have one item before the board today regarding the proposed 2023 Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit operating budget. I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Van Dyke, General Manager of Corporate Services, Acting General Manager of Health and Social Services, to provide the overview of the 2023 budget.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and through you to members of the board. I think we'll just get the presentation up on the screen. So I'm very pleased to be before you this morning to present the 2023 budget for to start with the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit. To begin, I'll just do a quick summary review of the entire Health and Social Services Division. So as the Board of Health is aware, the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit is a department within Health and Social Services. Public health includes teams that work on infectious and vaccine preventable diseases, healthy growth and development, environmental health, school health, substance use, oral health, and professional practice quality assurance. These are all mandated programs. In social services and housing, which is we will deal with after the Board of Health closes, but as a department of the Health and Social Services Division, social services and housing includes the programs of Ontario Works, housing services, homeless prevention services, licensed childcare, and early on child and family centers and special needs resources. And then we also have Norview Lodge, which is our 179 bed municipal long-term care. So next slide, please. For the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit, successes for 2022 and the priorities and objectives for 2023. I will note for the board that the budget that is in front of you today does represent a status quo budget for 2023. And I would also refer you to the budget package for more specific details related. Page 4, the summary program, the program summary for more details about the activities, the main activities and successes for 2022. But just as a high level, the health unit continued to focus on the COVID-19 pandemic response. The provincial mandate related to that did shift throughout the past year. And now the health unit is focusing and continues to focus on managing outbreaks in the highest risk settings, which include long-term care homes and other congregate care settings. as well as the COVID vaccination program. And to date, along with our community partners, we have administered over 280,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccine in Haldeman and Norfolk. In 2022, we also undertook a very thorough recovery planning process so that the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit could return to full public health programming. And again, in the chart on page 4 of the health unit budget package, you can see some of the activities that have been undertaken related to maternal and child health, environmental health and public health inspections, as well as infectious disease and vaccine preventable disease work that is non-COVID related, but is related to our other diseases of public health significance. Last year, we also completed in the health unit the interim strategic plan for the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit, which really focused on building back after the pandemic. And it also included a post-pandemic debrief for the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit staff, which had a focus on recovery, mental health and wellness, work-life balance, and building resiliency so that we can move forward. The priorities and objectives for 2023. The Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit is mandated under the Health Protection and Promotion Act to undertake a strategic planning process. So as I said, in 2022, we did an interim strategic plan for 1 year to be able to meet that mandate. In the coming year, the health unit will need to undertake a full strategic planning process to be in alignment with the legislation. So as part of the work plan, the health unit staff will be completing our public health community needs assessment, which is really the underlying background document that identifies our community needs as it relates to public health. And that becomes the foundational, one of the key foundational documents for the new strategic plan. And then also we need to continue to explore strategies to address health human resources challenges. So like other health units around the province, like other healthcare employers in the healthcare sector, the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit has also experienced the same kinds of recruitment and retention challenges within the health human resources area. We continue to post vacancies as they come up, actively recruit. We have been able to fill vacancies, but we do continue to see turnover, and so we need to continue to address those challenges. Next slide, please. So the main budget drivers, as I said, although there is a significant increase in the net levy requirement, this is a status quo budget for 2023. The main budget driver is related to salaries and benefits, and like other divisions and departments within the county, this relates to those economic and incremental salary increases. We also are seeing an increase in interdepartmental charges. And then there is the one item that was under the levy funded capital that is for the strategic plan. We will be applying to the province for one-time funding to cover that charge. And so if that is approved, then that will be that will have a positive effect on the budget. But because it is a mandatory thing that the health unit needs to undertake, we need to include it as a levy-funded capital project in case we do not receive Ministry of Health. And so with that, Madam Chair, I would like to pass it over to Michael Vansickle, Supervisor in Financial Services, to present the actual staff report.
Thank you, Heidi. To the chair, to board members, the report and budget being presented today is for health unit services shared between Haldeman and Norfolk counties. The 2023 budget has been prepared with status quo service level changes. The proposed net levy requirement for the health unit is $3,268,600. which is an increase of $432,300 or 15.2%. You'll notice in your Board of Health document and report that the levy request is $3,268,600. The difference there is just a matter of timing between when the Board of Health document was printed and when the Norfolk County budget was prepared. And the difference is a $4,100 or 0.1% increase. This does not affect the material that was covered yesterday or the number that we ended at the end of the day. So the main levy driver for this increase is salaries and benefits, which represents close to 75% of the amount. Following that, approximately 13% is related to intergovernmental charges. The remaining increase can be attributed to material supplies and services and levy-funded capital. Appendix A outlines the operating budget document and includes details on the health unit's performance measures, prior achievements, and upcoming objectives and challenges. The document has been organized based on the supporting ministries' programs, which includes the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Children, Community, and Social Services. The final area outlines the Ministry of Health's COVID-19 program, where staffing requirements have been reduced compared to the prior year's prorated FTEs. Appendix B includes the Haldeman Norfolk Shared Services budget, which was prepared for and presented to the Advisory Committee on January 9th. The report was approved as presented without questions asked of staff. Haldeman and Norfolk staff would like to bring to the board's attention that health unit programs have or are anticipated to have status quo funding from 2022 to 2023. Ministry of Health programs received a 1% funding increase in 2022. However, the Healthy Babies, Healthy Children program, funded by MCCSS or Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services, has not received an increase in funding since 2014. While funding is greatly appreciated from all upper levels of government, without an annual increase, the burden shifts to the municipal levies. Health unit programs have a determined cost share, and these programs are not receiving sufficient funds to remain at that level of share. And with that, Heidi, Syed, and myself are available to answer any questions from the board.
Committee members, any questions? Brendan?
Thank you, Mayor Martin. Just I guess a two-part question. One is there any change in the or update on the amalgamation of health units? Number one. And number two, if that were to happen, would only the health portion of this budget transfer, you think, or is there another portion of that, like the health, the social services and all that, would that stay under our jurisdiction? Or maybe you don't know the answer. Thank you.
Madam Chair, through you to Board Member Brenton. So in relation to the first question, the last update that was provided to the Board of Health continues to be status quo, meaning that the latest information that we have from the Ministry of Health is that the province plans to re-engage with municipalities and boards of health related to future governance of health units and boards of health after respiratory virus season, which we anticipate will be sometime in the spring. So at this time, I do not have an update on the future governance structure or plans for amalgamation for health units across the province. But that is something that is absolutely on my radar, and we will bring an update to the Board of Health as soon as we have information to share. And in relation to the second question, the Board of Health, the scope of the Board of Health is the Haldeman Norfolk Health Board. So social services and housing and Norview Lodge would not be impacted. And I'm saying this with the information that I have to date. It is my assessment that social services and housing and Norview Lodge would not be impacted by any change in governance to health units because their operations currently are outside the scope of the health.
Any further questions from board members? Board member Colvis.
Not so much in with the taxation, but related. Is there any update on preschool childcare? How it's handled throughout the county? Is there any dead spots? Where we should be from and some school childcare?
So Madam Chair, through you to Councillor Columbus, I'm happy to answer that question now. Childcare is under the scope of social services, so I can either answer it now or wait. Yeah, okay. So when you will see when we present the social services budget that there have been additional investments into licensed childcare through the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Program, and a part of that program includes increased spaces, licensed spaces for childcare. And so our staff are currently looking at opportunities to increase childcare across Haldeman and Norfolk. We know that we have had some reductions in childcare spaces in the west end of Norfolk County due to closures of centers. So we would be looking at there for sure. The reality is that we have wait lists for childcare across the two county areas. So any additional childcare that we could build would benefit the overall wait list pressures.
Thank you. Glad that you're looking into it.
Further questions from board members, staff? Board member Vanden Driesche.
Thank you for seeing me there, Madam Chair. Just a curiosity question, and when I look at Norfolk County, obviously it's 100% funded except for the 0.61%. And you said it was a status quo budget. So there are no new initiatives that you're considering putting forward at all in 2023? If anyone could answer that.
So, Madam Chair, through you to Board Member Vanden Driesche for the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit, there are no new initiatives.
As a general update for board members, board member Michelle and I, the larger of the two Michelle board members, will be attending a delegation. We secured a delegation at Roma with the Ministry of Health. So we'll certainly have lots of time to advocate for our rural needs and have discussions and see what we can dig up on amalgamations and among other things. So it'll be positive. My question is more of a general question, and it really does apply to all staff members, but I'll direct it to you, Heidi, because we're in Board of Health. Is there any type of review, comprehensive review happening in all of our facilities and all of our programs and services on increased service levels or changes in service levels that created an increase in the budget due to COVID? And now we're potentially leveling out and seeing the funding from the provincial government that comes back to us settle as well. Have we done any comprehensive kind of study? Because, you know, it's easy to say that maybe we're turning a corner on COVID-19 and the province is going to fund us less and less for these one-time funding envelopes and initiatives. But the reality is there'll be lots of changes that have impacted each and every department inside the Board of Health forever. And it'll be a new normal, a new norm of how we do business and operate. So has there been any, I know you're all so busy, but has there been any comprehensive kind of review on what that service level impact has been and the dollar value associated with it?
So thank you, Chair Martin. I would say not formally, and I will give my answer and then I will invite Mr. Shaw to supplement if you would like. We do monitor service levels and service gaps and service pressures on an ongoing basis. And I think that as we transition back to full public health programming, we are going to continue to see higher than usual or expected service pressures, because we have had health unit staff that were redeployed from their regular jobs to the pandemic response for a period of time. And we had to adjust service levels in other programs to what we needed to do to meet the minimum requirements and the highest priority areas. So there are some backlogs of work that health unit staff will be working through to catch up to that and then to move forward. And certainly I think there has been a service impact on that. Nobody's fault, it just is. And a financial impact as well. And I would invite Mr. Shaw to add any additional comments that he would like.
Thank you, Heidi. So to Board Chair, we do have a plan to review our service delivery model in 2023, and we are planning to come up with the report to Board of Health maybe by fall of 2023, because I can anticipate there may be some changes, and I can share one example with you. We are seeing increase service delivery requests in our infectious disease program, because now that program is hosting COVID program as well. So for sure, we'll be coming up with a review, and we'll share the updated report with Board of Health. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any further questions from board members to staff with regards to the budget? Okay. I guess I'm just looking for a motion to receive the presentation as information. Moved by Councillor Huffman, seconded by Councillor Van Passen. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. The proposed 2023 budget is before the board today. If there aren't any further questions of the board with regards to the budget, I'm looking for a motion for the staff recommendation to approve the 2023 Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit operating budget with a new levy requirement of collectors. Nope.
Through the mayor, through the board chair to the board, there was just a clerical typo on what was in your report, but in the budget binders, everything was correct. So just, I'm just going to throw the motion up on the screen just so you can see what exactly you are approving.
That report CS 23019, proposed 2023 Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit operating budget be received as information, and that the 2023 Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit operating budget be approved with a net levy requirement of $3,268,600. Moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Huffman. Board member. Board member Michelle, did you want to enter debate or make a comment here, or you were looking a second?
Yeah, no, thank you, Madam Chair. I was seconding. That's fine.
Okay, excellent. Okay, final call, debate, discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, staff. We will now look for a motion on bylaw 2023-01 BH, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Board of Health for Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit at this Board of Health special meeting held on the 19th of January 2023 to be approved, signed by the chair of the board clerk and affixed with the corporate seal. Moved by Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Brunton. All those in favor? Carried. And a motion to adjourn at 9:54, moved by Board Member Huffman, seconded by Board Member Michelle. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Staff, do you need a moment? Nope. Okay. All right, we will now reconvene Norfolk County's Budget Committee meeting. Welcome back to day 2. I'd like to again remind everyone our meetings are web streamed, televised, and please ensure your phones are silenced. If attending virtually, please mute yourself when not speaking. Use the Microsoft Team hand raise feature icon to be called upon and remove it after you've finished speaking. And we will start today's meeting with the Health and Social Service Division, which is outlined on pages 50 to 72 of the budget package. And I'm going to pass it back over to Heidi, General Manager, to present the Health and Social Service proposed 2023 budget.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to members of council. So we are going to look at the social services and housing and Norview Lodge budgets, as well as the health and social services. So to start, I'll just give a high level overview of the 2022 successes in both social services and housing in Norview Lodge. Starting with social services, and there is a more detailed list on page 59 of your budget binders. Social Services has started the initial implementation phase of the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare, or CWEL program. This is the program that is cost shared between the federal and provincial governments in order to reduce parent fees in licensed childcare, including licensed home childcare. Social Services also delivered successfully the Social Services Relief Fund. This was 100% provincial funding that came during the pandemic. There were a total of 5 rounds of funding. A couple of things that I want to highlight under there. We were able to work in partnership with the Housing Corporation and True Experience, which is a not-for-profit in Dunnville, to regenerate 3 underutilized single-family homes and create 9 units of supportive housing for single individuals who are living with a mental illness and or addiction. And we have also expanded the availability of emergency housing options for individuals experiencing homelessness. So as council may have seen recently on social media and local media, the warming center that is being operated by Church Out Serving from First Baptist Church in Simcoe is open. We're very happy to support that initiative. I'll also highlight for council that on page 59 of your budget binder, you will see that in Ontario Works, we have 91% of our Ontario Works recipients who have completed a life stabilization plan with their case manager and community support worker. So that is the plan that identifies the barriers and the supports that people need to be able to become ready to undertake employment activities and become financially fit. I would also highlight that we completed and opened Dogwood Suites just down the street from here, which includes 51 units of supportive housing and successfully secured $14 million in provincial and federal funding in order to complete that program. Moving on to Norview Lodge, and those successes are found on page 64 of your budget binder. Norview Lodge has done a great job during the pandemic in responding and managing cases of COVID within the home. I'm really proud of the Norview team and all of that they have done during all of our teams. But I think we have to, it's important to highlight our long-term care staff and the challenges that they have experienced over the last few years in keeping our residents healthy and safe, as well as responding to changing legislation and regulations related to long-term care. They have had 2 ministry inspections, which have been successful. 1 minor item that was corrected before the inspectors even left the building. So congratulations to staff on that. And I would also highlight that Norview continues to implement the local food initiative in the home, which is an initiative that council supported and directed a number of years, more than 15 years ago now, where Norview Lodge really works with our local agricultural community to make sure that whenever possible, we have local food. Moving on to next slide, please, the priorities and objectives for 2023. So in social services and housing, it is our plan to complete a strategic review of the social housing system. So these are our not-for-profit, private social housing buildings who provide rent geared to income housing. This is our legacy housing that was inherited from the province in 2001. Our housing providers, some of them have already come to the end of their operating agreements. Some of them are approaching the end of their mortgages and operating agreements. A couple of them want to look at new governance models. And so we really think it's timely and important to take a strategic review of the whole system and bring back a report for council to consider. We'll be moving forward with full implementation of the CWELL program and completing the human services integration strategy for the social services and housing department. So we have been capitalizing on opportunities to further integrate our services as those opportunities come up internally. And we want to continue to move forward with the full plan. Again, with the goal that when people come into service, that they are meeting with as few people as possible and telling their story as few times as possible in order to get the service that they need. Over at Norview, Norview will be continuing to implement any provincial legislative changes that are coming out as a result of the Fixing Long-Term Care Home Act. And similar to the Haldeman Norfolk Health Unit, just like other long-term care homes in the area and in the province and other healthcare providers, Norview experiences the same kinds of health human resources challenges. So vacancies and turnover that we are actively recruiting for on a regular basis. Next slide, please. So the last slide is a highlight of the main budget drivers. Again, similar to the health unit, I will assure council that this is a status quo budget, and we are experiencing some of the same drivers that other divisions within the county are experiencing in terms of salaries and benefits being a main driver. We also, as we talked about during orientation, if each of us considers the costs that are going up in our own household budgets, Norview Lodge experiences those times 179. So if you think about the example I gave at orientation, if you think about your own grocery budget and how much more you're spending, and then invite 179 people over for dinner and think about how much you would need to spend at the grocery store. Those types of inflationary increases are being experienced at Norview Lodge. And then the one NBI that is included in this budget for housing is the one of the corporate priorities that is the $125,000 for capital repair and renewal for the Haldeman Norfolk Housing Corporation existing stock. And with that, Madam Mayor, I would be happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from council members to staff, Councillor Huffman, and then?
Thank you, Mayor Martin. Actually, not a question, just a comment. I just wanted to, one of the highlights that you made, and I just want to commend staff for their hard work in securing that funding for Dogwood Suites. I think we're very proud of that endeavor, and it will serve our community well. So again, thank you to staff for all of their hard work on that project.
Councillor Breton, was that a hand really? Okay. The council members, questions of staff? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Heidi, just quickly, if you were able to identify sort of a percentage of vacancy rate in terms of staff members, so health human resources over the past year, would you be able to give me a, we're running at 95% of where we should be, or we're running at 75% of where we'd like to be?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That is not a number that we have calculated. I don't know if perhaps Mr. Nolan has a comment in relation to Norview Lodge, even generally, if we have seen a greater than usual increase in vacancies in that area.
Thank you, Heidi, and to Mayor and Council. To answer the question, it isn't almost, I would have to actually have human resources to be able to support the documentation on what it has been. We have seen, as Council may remember, previous Council was involved, we did have a report came where we had increased funding for staffing under the Supporting Fixing Long-Term Care Act, but under the provincial direction to focus highly on long-term care and staffing. So we have had those increases, which are quite large, but the recruitment piece of it itself has been a challenge because, as Heidi did so well explaining, many of the provincial long-term care homes and the private long-term care homes are experiencing huge staffing shortages. And as the province has announced on multiple levels that they've tried to expedite educational programs for PSWs, registered staff, other support staff to try and help the crisis. But to give you an exact percentage, I wouldn't be able to do that at this time.
Thank you to you both for that. I guess the reason for my question, it's an area of concern for me. I'm very well aware of the challenge that we have in terms of health human resources across the province, and I just sort of scared, if you will, that going forward, because of some of our geographic location and with retirements and things like that on the horizon for many, that it's going to be a problem that is compounded. So I guess my comment is just if there are ways in which we can continue to push forward with recruitment, I'd like. There's been some talk of partnerships with Fanshawe, and, they're doing things in terms of education and PSW programs and fast tracking that. So if that can continue so that we don't end up behind the 8 ball would be kind of my only comment, because there's going to be a considerable need moving forward is my impression. Thank you.
Councillor Van Andrieschie.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. I'm looking at the levy support operating budget on page 66, and I've noted that in the revenue stream that we did go up by around $1 million, a little bit above from the federal provincial grant. How do we go about? Is there anything? A question to staff: is there anything out there in addition to grants or any other supports that we could go after? You think? Just because things are going to go obviously up, and I'm wondering if the province and the feds are keeping pace with what's happening out there, or do you feel that they're not?
So, Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Van Andrieschie, we have seen some funding increases throughout over the last couple of years. They have been one-time funding in order to address challenges that have come up related to COVID-19. Certainly, we have maximized that funding, and I'm really proud of the great initiatives that we have brought to the community and the extra support at Norview Lodge to use that funding. I think, as Mr. Van Sickle said during the Board of Health meeting, we really need to address the funding freezes in our base funding, because when we have minimum cost share models, so for example, in Ontario Works, when it is 50-50, if the province freezes their half, the levy needs to go up in order for us to maintain that base level of service. So that we really need to, we do advocate to the province for that, and we will continue to do that through our provincial associations. In terms of grants, certainly we, as a department and as a division of the county, when there are granting opportunities that become available, for example, for any capital items at Norview, we certainly take full advantage of that when the projects meet the criteria.
Yes, thank you. And I understand completely. And the more that we can get to the ministries to describe to them the situations, the better. And I know that with the mayor and the deputy mayor going up, which will be obviously continuing that conversation. And also the other point is, and I think Councillor Duffy touched on it, at the end of the day, we're all getting older, and I don't feel in Norfolk County we have sufficient spaces for long-term care or nursing care in the future. Would you concur with that? And what are your thoughts on that?
So, Madam Mayor, through you to Councillor Vanden Drieche, and after I make my remarks, if Mr. Nolan has anything he would like to add, I would invite him to do so as well. I know from working with both Norview Lodge and the social services and housing departments that we have, just like other communities across the province, we have a serious housing crunch, and we have a serious shortage of affordable housing. We have a serious shortage of supportive housing and housing options for people to age in place or to move into long-term care when the time comes that is the most appropriate place. We are well aware that this is a challenge around the province, and I would say that Norfolk County is not immune to that challenge. We have wait lists for long-term care. People are coming into long-term care on a crisis basis, just like we see in social housing. People are getting, those who meet the criteria for special priority are getting housed, but it gets more increasingly challenging for us to get lower down on those wait lists to be able to house folks who have been waiting for a long time. And what happens is then crisis happens, and then people move to the top of the list because it's a crisis situation. And that's why as we add new units, we are still seeing the same kinds of pressures.
Thank you, Heidi. I know it's a huge concern. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, we're going to receive the presentation, the budget divisional presentation. We did not do that. That's information. Mover in a second, please. Moved by Councillor Huffman, seconded by Councillor Duffy. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We are in our binders. We're going to, I'm going to allow Councillor Columbus to put a motion on the floor, which is something we were going to circle back to yesterday, and we didn't provide him time to do that, or I forget again.
Thank you, Madam. Yes, yesterday I spoke about this and was told that perhaps we'll bring it up later. It's with respect to the number of calls that I and probably other councillors are getting from developers, builders, consultants, and with respect to where their development application is at. One person last week out of 4 that called indicated that it was 2 years since they filed their application and didn't know where it was at. Another one that was looking to create job opportunities indicated that they could not get pre-consultation meeting until March, but yet they were prepared to move several jobs into Norfolk County. So this has been an ongoing problem, and I've talked to Mr. Sloan about it several times. And just to give counselors a heads up on where these applications are at, so that when you get a cold call, somebody complaining about, the interest rates are going up, winter's coming, they want to move forward. If we can get a handle on the date the application was filed, what stage is it at? Was there a pre-consultation meeting? What's the status current status of the application. So I've asked, the clerk has actually prepared a motion with respect to my request, and, oh, there it is right there. That staff be directed to provide an update to council on the status of development applications, special plan, zoning amendments, subdivisions, site plans, as it relates to filing application date, current status, and pre-consultation volume. And further, that this be brought back with the user fee update, next steps of Bill Norfolk resource report and Bill 109-23 update. So that's the way the motion recommendation is.
Thank you, Councillor Columbus. Could I just seek a little bit of clarification? Are you hoping staff come back with in a report with the developer's name and location and date, or are you hoping they come back with general averages and statistics on how long it's taking? Individual. Right. I think some of the pre-con stuff. Okay.
Rather than have somebody's name out there that perhaps may not want that.
Right, yeah. Okay, so staff, Mr. Sloan, you understand kind of the gist, or do you want to seek clarification to reword any type of form of motion?
Through the chair and through the chair, I think we've got some clarity and we can provide a status report update of public information. You're correct. There's pre-consultation information that can be confidential, but we can provide a status update for the various development applications. And there'll probably be some statistics as well that we can do. And I think it would be helpful if it's rolled into the updates that we are going to be providing to committee and council anyway about the Bill 109-23 rollout, user fees, and depending on what happens today in terms of that status on the Bill Norfolk resourcing as well. I'm also told from our director of planning that they have these charts and they do this every Monday morning. So they have the status reviews. They'll need to circle back with all the different departments as well, because I think when we're looking at milestones, we're probably looking at of the entire project. So we'll need to work with our engineering colleagues on the status of those items too, and we can bring that back. To be honest, I think concierge position that we were proposing would help prepare this type of information and do this, but we can put this together for that time frame. I think we're looking at coming back by June anyway, so that would work for us.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor that's for a seconder. Councillor Fantastic. Any debate, discussion? Councillor Barry, Councillor Duffy, Councillor.
I guess through the chair to Councillor Columbus, maybe. Are you looking, is this a one-time update, or is it something we are going to see maybe quarterly or every 6 months? Like, what is the intention here? Because I mean, the one-time thing certainly that's helpful for right now. I don't know how long that list takes to not expire, but how long is that technically for? And how long is good?
Well, we've never had this list before, and I understand that there is quite a backlog when you go back 2 years or even 6 months. So if we can just start with this first step, I think is the best place to start. And if we need more information in another 6 months, then we'd ask for them.
I think what we can do is maybe request after this comes forward, staff get caught up, a bit of a, I see you both there online as well, I'll get to you in a moment, a bit of a comprehensive training session on how we can access this information ourselves online, because I think it'd be a burden for staff if they needed to come back and file a list every 6 months. Councillor Barry is right, as the project expires. So there is a way to do it. I don't know how to do it. I'm assuming no one else knows how. So some very brief training, but yeah, if we can do some training on that, I think that will help us, but I agree with the motions. Councillor Duffy, Huffman, Van Driesche, Michelle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think you sort of touched on what I was going to say. My question really would be to staff if there was some sort of, it's no surprise around here, I don't love paper. So if there is a digital version that is confidential to councillors again, I understand there is confidential information regarding pre-cons, et cetera. So if there's something that we could log in and check status, or just a digital portal would be great. Thanks. Thank you.
Go ahead, Brennan.
Through the chair, if I may. Yeah, anyone can log in right now on the Norfolk GIS website and see the development applications and the status. So this information does exist, but I think it would helpful if we compile it into one summary update. And then when we do that update, as was mentioned, we can talk about how often is that needed, whether it's an update to council or is just public information that we can put out there to stakeholders and everyone so they see it, but also for members of the council so that you have a regular status update as well.
I did do some GIS training, you're right, but I've spent the entire time just referencing, as Councillor Van Passen said, the aerial view of the 60s and 70s to now. So I just slide back and forth on the before and after, and that's the extent of what I've learned. That would be helpful if we could get some training. Councillor Huffman.
Thank you, Mayor Martin, through you. I appreciate the intent of the motion. Unfortunately, I feel that we have a department that is overworked at this point in time with the number of staff that they have, and adding another layer of work to them, it seems counterproductive. My direction would be, first off, if you get a call from somebody, you take the information from the developer or the individual that has the concern. I've never had any problem getting feedback immediately from staff and being made apprised of the situation and then getting back to the individual. I see nothing wrong with continuing to work that way. But the best way to move forward in my mind would be to just look at doing the actual quote unquote short, brief training, and councillors can be responsible for finding this information on their own. I don't think we need to add another layer of work to this department.
Thanks, Councillor Huffman. Councillor Van Andruschi.
So I thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with the motion. I think it wouldn't hurt at all, but I do need, and I agree with the Councillor Huffman, but we need to assure the developers that we're moving forward as quickly as possible. So, and I do agree that department is heavily worked. And so we need to give them all the tools possible to do that. And I'm hoping today we see that come to fruition. So I will support the motion, and I will support the fact we need a tutorial on how to access it online. So I will be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Michelle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My colleagues have kind of collectively summed up most of my comments. I am concerned, as I think a couple of them have mentioned, about the workload for an already understaffed department. However, maybe this maybe puts into some brighter light the suggestion that we have had from that department and Mr. Sloan about the development concierge position that we might consider sometime down the road in the not too distant future. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call the question on motion moved by Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Van Passen. Everyone can see it there, Councillor Van Andruschi and Michelle. Okay. All those in favor and opposed, motion is carried. Thank you very much. We're going to bounce back over to the budget. The next few sections, there will be no formal presentations from staff, but this information is supplemental information to what was presented in the divisional budgets. We do have a description of the information that's included in each section, and we'll open the floor up for questions and discussions. So we are going to flip to section 4 in the white binder, which is capital and reserve related impacts. Provides additional details on capital and reserve related items included in the proposed 2023 levy supported operating budget. There's details on levy funded capital projects on page 226 to 229. It was reviewed yesterday. It's just basically supplemental information. Debt levels and annual repayment limits shown on pages 230 to 231. Reserve and reserve fund projections on page 232 to 236. And additional information on Council Initiative Reserve on page 237 and 238, And with that, I would like to pass the chair to Councillor Columbus to keep everyone on their toes. It would be Councillor Michelli, but he's virtual. And next in line is Councillor Vandendriessche, but she is virtual. So Councillor Columbus, runner up.
I'm here.
Excellent. If it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, I would like to dig in.
Okay, can we have staff give this report? That's where we'll start. Is that Amy or Kathy?
Thank you, Chair, and through the Mayor to Council. There is no formal report for this section, so we're just opening it up to questions of committee.
Okay, we'll go to questions then. I'll call on Mayor Martin first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to jump over to page 237, 238 in your book and dig specifically into the council initiative reserve. As it stands right now, that reserve gets an annual contribution. It's down from 1 million to now $300,000 off of the levy into that reserve. In my opinion, it's been discussed by the former term of council quite heavily. Its uses weren't ever what I depicted its uses to be. There is a balance in the account, and there are unknown requirements for what the outstanding balance is needed for. So I'd like to put a motion out on the floor to my colleagues that we do not contribute any levy dollars to that account for this year. And when staff bring us their reserve report on contributions and policies and so on, I'd like to see them dig into this reserve in full and provide recommendations to council as to what they think we should do with it. In the future, I'm happy to see it closed out in full, but there is money in the account. We do have some uses for some of the balance that's in there, so we don't have all of that information. So the motion is to leave the account on the books but make a $0 levy contribution to it this year. So we'd be removing $300,000 from the budget. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So Mayor Martin has put the motion on the floor. Can we get that up on the screen there, Madam Clerk?
Yeah, I'm putting it up there. Just to clarify with the mover, did you want the portion about staff bringing a report back, or just that we're removing it from the budget of this?
Staff, was that part of your plan anyways in the report to address each of the reserves and their uses and if we keep them or not? Okay. So,
yes, that's correct.
Okay, so you don't need that additional direction. You would have done that?
No, so that will be included.
Thank you.
Is there a secondary for this? Councilor Huffman? We will now move to this discussion. Open the floor for discussion. Councilor Michelli? Oh, you had your hand up there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did have my hand up to second, but I'll also take this opportunity to just comment that I'm totally in support of doing this. I think we need to have a little bit more defined approach to how we use this reserve. So I'm very much looking forward to some further information for staff about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to Councilor Vandendriessche.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. As I look at the open balance of it, and I look at the uses that it was used for, and as much as I can agree with removing the 300,000, which I do agree for this year, what happens to the projects that are listed, or will that come up in discussion with later on? If I could ask that staff.
Councilor Vandendriessche, can you just repeat your last sentence or two, please?
Sorry, I am getting a bit of a feedback here. So anyway, I will agree with the motion to not fund that this year. But my question is whether staff is going to bring this up later, or if I could get an answer to what happens to the uses that are in there right now. Would we have a need for, say, for instance, project microphone, universal broadband proposal? Is there anything? I see that comes across, so I'm just wondering what would happen there.
Thank you. I will go to Mayor Martin for her comments first.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. my suggestion is that the balance in the account remains because staff, we've made contributions already by way of motions. So the balance in there is spoken for. The full amount, staff maybe can comment so I don't put words in your mouth. They're not entirely sure if the full amount is needed for all of those potential uses and they need more time to dig into that. So staff, if you want to provide any addition, that's accurate?
Yes, yes, through the Mayor's Council, that's correct. We would need to investigate thoroughly just to make sure, but all the committed balances that have been being committed to date are covered in that existing.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. That's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Any further comments or discussion? Or that is Councillor Duffy first, and then Councillor Van Pass.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, I think perhaps maybe it's the mayor or to the previous councillors that are on this table. I am not myself overly familiar with sort of the purpose on why this was created in the first place. So I wonder if, and so perhaps that's the problem, but I wonder if someone could give me some base knowledge of its purpose. I'll leave that open to anybody.
Mayor Martin, do you wish to handle that?
Sure, I'll speak to it, and if I miss anything, I'm happy for council members to chime in. It was our first year of budget in the 2018 term of council. It was a recommendation made by council members, and we added $1 million, 1% off the levy each year into that account. As the years progressed, our contributions changed. I think there was one year 600,000, and now we're at 300,000. The intent was for unbudgeted items to be to have some money put away for them, whatever the case was. And the discussion at the time was to give Councillor Huffman hanging baskets in Waterford, which never materialized. We discussed, beautification initiatives, some small wins for our community and for council, and that we would have funding put aside for that. The previous uses from the 2022 year are listed here, but there's also uses from the 2021 year that did not match up with that mandate. I believe it was 2022, staff correct me if I'm wrong, we did create a policy for spending out of this account that we needed to report on what it was spent for. If we decided to spend it in closed session, we needed to come out in open session and specify the dollar value, so on and so forth. But long story short, in my opinion, although it's been used for a variety of uses that we wouldn't have necessarily been able to do because they weren't budgeted for, it's not the type of uses we set the account up for.
Okay, Councillor Duffy. Good. Councillor Van Pass.
Yeah, I can add a little bit more to that. It was something I brought forward the first year. It's something I noticed if something came up totally unexpected, there was no little piggy bank to get the money from to pay for it. So previous councils were forced to still fix the problem, but they didn't have the money. So maybe that's one of the reasons that our reserves were all negative the first year the previous council came on. That was what I brought forward. I guess I couldn't quite sell that sort of logic, but it was agreed by council to use it for those unexpected initiatives that came up. And yeah, Councillor Huffman mentioned, something like if the Waterford Chamber had a plan to beautify Norfolk or Waterford, that we'd have some money to help kick in. I think Councillor Martin mentioned like the benches on the pier in Dover, if they needed replacing and a community group came forward, needed some help, we would have a place to go get that money from, even though it wasn't a specific line item in the budget. And see, from last year, we dipped into it quite often to get something that came up out of the blue, but at least we had a source to get it. And then we developed a policy. I think the original one was that we were going to put $1 million a year in there, and we don't need that much, so let's maintain a balance of $1 million by putting in the 300,000 here. But I think the policy is good. I don't object to Councilor Martin's thing to not put in that contribution this year if we can still meet those commitments that are in there, because we are at a starting balance of what, 841,000, right? So I won't object to that motion, and to try to get this back to where it's what the original intent was. But if we knew everything that was going to go wrong ahead of time, we wouldn't need to have it in the first place, because we'd have it budgeted somewhere else. So
I think I can support Councillor Martin's motion on this, but I don't want to lose the intent that we always have that little extra little pocket full of money somewhere in case something goes wrong.
Councillor Brown.
You, Mr. Chairman, I just have a question. I had no idea where these things were being financed from, but, can I ask you, the universal broadband, we're putting 250,000, is that the $1 million that went to one of the, Rogers, or is that, who was the beneficiary of that? Rogers, Bell, Telus, who ended up with that?
Amy?
You, Councillor Columbus, and through you, I'm going to hand that one over to our CAO, I think.
Through you, Madam Mayor, or through you, Mr. Chair, the committee. That's a commitment that was made in regards to expanding universal broadband. I think it was for Rogers. The money has not been requested yet, but the project is commencing. And we'll see whether they need the money or not, but there's a commitment that we made, but none of it has been given yet.
I love it. I remember reading about this in the paper, but I found it very odd that we would finance these people. I think I was the one that made the comment that those Bell, Telus, Rogers made $52 or $53 billion in 1 year. And we have to give them $1 million over, what, 4 years here. Doesn't make sense to me. That money's going to go right in some shareholder's pocket. That's where it's going. Thank you.
You haven't given it yet. Councillor Van Pass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll give a little bit more in-depth history on it, that when the funding programs were being offered by the federal government, that Rogers was making applications to do all of Norfolk County. We put up $1 million as part of that collective application process. Rogers was not successful in that, so we never used that money. Rogers was successful the next year in receiving grant funding from the upper levels of government to do 100% of Norfolk County with fiber cable, but that doesn't really mean 100%. They mean about 95% probably, you know, where you only got one person down a gravel road. And my hope, and I think previous council's hope, was that maybe we could use the $1 million to help on some of those little stub roads where they're not going to put it in. Maybe if we help finance that a little bit, so we can actually get 100% of coverage in the county. But, you know, that will be up for discussion when it comes up, but we are setting aside those funds just in case.
So the way I'm reading this, in 2022, we did not spend that money. If you commented on. Well, if they don't have.
You, Mr. Chair, that's correct. We have not spent any of the money yet.
Hope they don't ask.
Councillor Barry.
Thank you. So sorry, through the chair to, I guess, just general comment. So I remember when this was created, it as a citizen, I guess, of Norfolk, kind of made me uncomfortable then that there was sort of this. No, I wasn't going to call it a slush fund because I feel like that's that's unnecessarily sort of confrontational. I don't really want to do that, but you know, I see there's economic development projects here, there's public works projects, there's operation projects. I'd be more comfortable if we gave those departments a budget for those type of projects that they had to use for within, that people at least knew we were investing X into public works and X into operations and X into economic development for these things. So as we sort of evolve on this over the next few years, that's going to be the tack I take. I've heard that we can't remove, or we shouldn't necessarily, I guess we can do what we like, but we shouldn't remove some of the money that projects that are already underway. But I'm wondering about, you know, so for 2023, but what about beyond 2023? Is this money that we can pull back and reduce the levy increase, reduce the tax increase to the residents further, or put into those departmental budgets?
do you wish that to, whoever would, I don't know who you want, to give you the power.
We'll go to Amy first.
Thank you, Councilor Columbus and through the Mayor and Council. Yeah, so this fund, the balance that's in there has been committed to the items as discussed. And I think the motion is to take a 1-year holiday sort of from that contribution. So what we would do is pull out the contribution for 2023. It would then go back into the proposed budget that comes forward in 2024, and council can have that opportunity to review it again. And in the meantime, in 2023, we'll be bringing back a comprehensive reserve report. So we'll have some recommendations and some additional information on it at that time. And we'll bring forward the policy then with it as well. And then council can review the policy that's associated with that reserve and make some determinations. And if it's the will of council to take that balance and to do something different with it or apply it, I mean, you could apply it to reduce the levy, but that's a one-time application. So then that levy increase doubles again the next year. So we strive not to apply one-time funding as a levy reduction because it kind of builds in that increase following year. But those are certainly options that the council can have when we bring forward that report from some discussion. I think I answered all of your questions, but let me know if I missed anything. And I'm happy to ask Ms. LaPlante or Mr. Meneses if they have any other comments to add on that.
Any other comments? Okay, that's sufficient answer. Thank you.
Right. So how was the commitment made? Like, are they aware of this money sitting here? Or is it just a maybe, or how, is there some letter that went out to them, or?
Mr. Menzies?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the contractor is aware that there's money there. This time they have not asked for it, and we're hopeful that they'll be able to achieve their objectives without asking us for it.
Just on another note, when Councilor Van Passen indicated about the rural roads and so forth, but who's the company that's putting a lot, East Link, is it, that's putting a lot of cable in and fiber optics and so, is that, I know they've done all down in Victoria and other areas. Is that East Link,
I'm pretty certain it's Execulink.
Execulink, okay.
And in the north part of the county right now, it would be Rogers.
And they're doing that at their expense. Thank you.
Okay, any more discussion with respect to the motion moved by Mayor Martin? I'll go with the clerk. Teresa?
Through the chair, just before we vote, I see that Councillor Michelle is no longer on the screen, and I'm just throwing a call out there to see if he is at the meeting, because I do need to know if he's here for this vote.
Councillor Michelle, can you hear us?
Okay, I'm going to record him as absent from this vote.
Okay. Are you putting the motion back up on the screen? Just make a comment. Basically what this does is it substitutes for budget amendments. That's the way I see it. Rather than going through budget amendments, it fits the mold we did there. Okay, so the motion moved by Martin, second by Huffman, that the reserve allocation of $300,000 for the council initiative reserve be removed from the 2023 levy support operating budget. Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Back over to Mayor Martin.
If you wouldn't mind, Mr. Chair, hanging tight for a minute, I do have a couple questions with regards to reserves, if that's okay.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
Thanks. I'm wondering if I could get a comment from staff with regards to the LPRCA commitments, and the full, is the full commitment needed, and what are the impacts if there was a lesser contribution made?
What page are you on?
Through the mayor, I'm just looking for clarification. Are you talking about the additional capital projects for LPRs?
Yes.
Okay. So those won't be specifically identified in this binder because they're in the capital plan. But to give a little bit more information, so they're in the capital plan that was new this year, and they're presented as levy funded projects. So they will be commitments in future years as we come to those projects.
And what is the total figure that we're contributing for this year for those future capital projects?
So through the mayor's council, that was one of the items I believe I mentioned in my presentation yesterday was an additional $875,000 that staff had recommended for reserve transfers this year. And that includes $300,000 to the contingency reserve to try to smooth out the impacts of when those LPRCA projects will come up. So in the years, sorry, it was $350,000. In the years where those projects come up, there's a couple that are quite significant. So instead of having a large swing in the levy at that point, we felt it was best to contribute to contingency in the years leading up so that we will have the funding to kind of smooth out the levy impact over that period.
Levy it now or levy it then? I am not sure right now. It's not. It was pertaining to a staff presentation. It's not. There's a $350,000 deposit into the LPRCA reserve that's planning for future capital projects.
Councilman Pass, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since I was newly appointed to the LPRCA board, I got a copy of the budget and I sat down with the GM there because I had several questions on it, but it was explained to me that they are also need to go through that asset management process, and they sort of restated the budget. I think we approved it yesterday, but the levy portion went up by 37%, but the capital portion, like normally when LPRCA property in Norfolk would need to be repaired, like a dam would need to be repaired, we would be charged a special benefiting levy, pay for the capital repairs. So they've restated their budgets, they've reduced the capital contributions and put more of it into the levy so that they have that sort of steadiness, because they know that in a few years they got to fix Peterbilt Dam. We'll be putting sort of a set amount to build up to that rather than all in one. That was past practice. So I don't know if that helps explain it or makes it more confusing, but you know, there was quite an increase in the base budget of our levy, but it's balanced out by a reduction in the capital portion.
Councilman Passon has explained it quite well.
I don't have any further questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Councilman Passon.
Yeah, I do have some questions on section 4 with the reserve balances. On page 234, look at the fire vehicle and equipment reserves. You know, we're at $431,000. Then it goes negative, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And the negative, 10 years or 5 years out, we're $4 million in the hole. That's no longer a reserve if it's going to stay negative. So I would expect staff to either explain why that's happening or make some adjustments in next year's budget. We're going to have to start drifting more into that reserve. Get a comment on that or not?
Go to staff. I see Chris has his finger on the button.
Yes, through the chair to the council. That's one of the other items in those additional reserve transfers that we had identified. So there's, given that the balance is essentially negative $4 million at the end of the 10 years, our recommendation was an additional $4 million per year to keep us in the black on that reserve. And that's a result of changing this year from financing any fire vehicle replacements from debt, which we have previously been doing. So that it was in an attempt to bring our debt levels down more reasonably to address some of the concerns in that area.
And the next question is on page 36. The Simcoe Farmers Market Reserve. is the negative $39,173, and it does not change. Simcoe BIA reserve is zero and does not change. Isn't it about time we just sort of wrote that off? And I don't expect we're ever going to get $39,000 from Simcoe Farmers Market. And if we're not going to get it the next 10 years, why do we still have it on the books? Just write it off to get done with it.
Steph, comment?
Thank you, and through the chair to Councillor Columbus, we have reached out to the Simcoe Farmers Market and had some initial conversations with them. They were hoping once they got through their busy season over Christmas that they could propose a meeting time and we could discuss that line. So we haven't had a chance to get together and do that yet, but we have initiated some conversations with them. The Simcoe BIA reserve was just recently returned to the Simcoe BIA that they could manage that themselves. So as part of the reserve report that comes forward, we'll be bringing forward a recommendation to get council approval to formally close that one.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further with respect to these reserves? Any discussion further to be had? Don't see any. With that, shall I pass it back to you, Mayor Martin?
Thank you very much, Councillor Columbus, for letting me jump in there. Okay, we are section 5, supplementary information in the binder. Summary of new budget initiatives as well as detailed business cases for the 4 NBIs originally recommended by staff on pages 240 to 258. We've already dug into Build Norfolk. And then a summary of council approved initiatives on page 259 and the full-time equivalent guide and report on pages 260 to 263. Are there any questions or comments from Budget Committee on this section? Okay. Seeing none. Councillor Michelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering if, and you can direct me here, if this is the appropriate section to bring up any other additional items that councillors may have. I'll just wait for that decision about that. Are we going to then, once we complete that section, will we be given an opportunity to ask some questions about some other possibilities that are budget related?
Thanks, Councillor Michelli. So technically, all of the council driven additions were supposed to be submitted by notice of motion and be included in the discretionary items. Questions concerning a particular department or an idea could have been brought up in all of those department reviews, but if you have a comment or a question that you'd like to pose to staff.
Well, it was just related to one of the decisions we made during yesterday's session, related to the discretionary item of the SCORE membership.
Okay, yep, sure.
And I supported our membership in SCORE, but it just came to my attention that I guess I would need to review that again, but I do recall that when we approved it for last year's budget, it also included a clause for an automatic renewal the following year, and I believe we took it out then. Is that now going to be the case again, that if we are funding SCORE for $25,000 in 2023, does the automatic renewal for 2024 kick in as well?
It's the way the motion was worded, if I recall, is that we have we will, if it's carried at the end of the day for budget, the 25,000 membership fee will be paid, and we automatically send them notification that it is our last year. So therefore, if it doesn't go ahead, if this term of council doesn't agree to stay a part of the membership, we have already served them with notice, 1 year's worth of notice to leave the membership, which is the requirement.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Madam
Sorry,
Chair, for that.
Teresa's not sure that that's the case. Go ahead, Teresa.
Okay, I'm not either.
Through the mayor to council, I would have to look into that a little further, but I feel that my understanding of the SCORE membership regulations is that we provided the notice last year for this year that we were terminating. If we re-establish our membership, I believe we will be rebound by that condition of the membership.
I thought it was a reconsideration, Councillor Van Passen. I thought it was a reconsideration. The motion applied, and the reason why I thought that was because Nancy pulled it up on her computer after the fact and sent a message to SCORE, and I chatted with Kim Earl. So do you recall? We better.
Thank you, Member. SCORE is a not-for-profit corporation. Norfolk County is a part owner, and in the shareholder agreement, if you want to withdraw as a partner in that corporation, you have to give them 1 year notice. So,
understood that, but
we did that last year. The motion yesterday to pay our membership fee would put us back in full standing. If you want to give them that 1 year notice, we would have to add that to the motion from yesterday.
Okay, I understood
To warn
initially
them
as a
that we're giving up next year, and then we'll put it
Because
back
we
in and we'll
said-
give up to next year.
notice to opt out.
So regardless of whether we reconsidered that motion, once we reestablish the membership, we're bound by that membership rules. So only council can give us the direction to provide that notice to terminate.
Okay, good call, Councillor Michelle. Are you keen to move that motion so that we have that option for next year's budget?
I am, Madam Chair.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor that we pay for our SCORE membership for this year and again send notice that we do not intend to carry over next year. What that does is allows us to opt back in next year if we so choose, but it doesn't turn our $25,000 membership into a $50,000 membership because it doesn't put the line item into our, we're committed. If we don't send that notice, we're tied in for 2 years. If we send the notice, we can still do another year and send notice again, another year, send notice again. So what it does is it makes it a 25,000 1 year membership contribution. And we can discuss whether we continue or not next year at budget, which is actually how I understood it anyways, because I think that the debate was, let's let this new term of council decide if this SCORE membership has value. And that's why it was added as a discretionary item. So moved by Councillor Michelle, seconded by. So everybody wants a 2 year membership regardless of the outcome of this year. You haven't had a status report. You haven't had. Seconded by Councillor Brunton. Debate and discussion. Councillor Van Andriessen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know we discussed this during last council time, and we found the merit in it. And knowing SCORE and have worked with SCORE years ago, I have to admit that it does have merit. It does have value. It gets us into some doors. And if you were to, when we did listen to her presentation, Kim's presentation, we noted that there were some significant dollars that were gained by the county because of being in that organization. I think it would be unfair to them as our organization if we were to always be in this type of situation. We're okay for this year. We'll vote it back in. Oh, but we're telling you we're coming out. I think in this particular case, I don't mind the 2 years just because we'll see even better whether the merit is there or not. But I just don't want to disrupt them and their organization with doing this type of thing each time. Thank you.
Councillor Columbus.
Well, I think this program delivers good value, $25,000. I don't see that over exorbitant. It gives us some real great connections into federal and provincial government programs and into they've helped us make presentations to Roma, AMO, and I think if we pulled out, I think it would cripple this whole organization and be shut right down because it was put there actually by Norfolk originally, who came up with it. Thank you.
in my orientation session, I see you there, Councillor Michelle, and I'll get right to you. I believe that they've made some changes to their bylaws where they've had upper tier municipalities opt out of the membership, and they've restructured their bylaw where now single tier municipalities can opt in and pay. So there is more revenue than I think not that they have a lot of revenue, but I don't know how contingent they are on our funding. So I just want to make sure that we have full scoop out there. But Councillor Michelle, take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This motion is in no way connected to the viability or the merit of being a member of SCORE. I voted for this yesterday. My only concern is that generally speaking, in a time of, budget, restraint, that we just not be locked into something for 2024 that we will at the time have the option of entering into again. I just thought that this was just another little small opportunity. I totally support the mandate of SCORE, and it has been, I believe, a very beneficial relationship that we have had with them. But I'm just, I always like, if I have a choice, I like to have options in decisions that we make, and this provides us an option. In 2024, if we feel that this is still a worthwhile endeavor, we can issue our funding for the membership again. I just thought that this was as I said before, in a time of budget constraint, every little option we have, I think that we can have available to us, we should take advantage of. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brunton.
I agree with Councillor Michelle. I don't think it says we're leaving. All we're doing is saying we're in for this year, and next year's a different year, but it all comes down to money. And maybe next year we won't be able to afford it. So anyways, I support the motion.
Thanks. Councillor Barry.
I'm not going to support it. I understand where Councillor Michelle is going, and I see that point of view, but I feel like Councillor Columbus has said there's a lot of value there, and that value is not going to be less than next year than it is this year. But also for their own planning and their own knowledge, I mean, we should be committed to moving forward with them if we're going to make that commitment this year. And I think if the reverse was true, where we were expecting a partner of Norfolk County, and we got the message that, well, we're going to go year by year, we make our budgeting and our decisions a lot more difficult than it had to necessarily be. So I think that I'm confident that council will see the value in this investment and be able to find $25,000 on the base.
Yeah, I'm going to jump. Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too see the value in the investment in the corporation, and recognize as well that it's you're in for the long haul. An economic development sort of thing is always pushing, always adding. It's not year by year that you get an immediate return on your investment. And it's just been up for argument every time we talk about it. But I'm in for the long haul, so I don't support the current motion on the floor to give them notice again every year that we don't know what we're doing, where we want to be. I want to be here for a while yet, so thank you.
I'm going to jump in on the debate on this one. I will be supporting the motion because, not because I want to send them inconsistent messages, but because the original reason why I supported the motion was to give this term of council the opportunity to find the value. Formerly, we weren't having briefings on what the program did. Council wasn't made aware of what the delegations were happening at Roma and so on and so forth. So I wasn't trying to speak on behalf of council and just say, sure, it's worth it. Take my word for it. So I do believe they deserve a longstanding committed partner. However, it's completely fair to allow this council to have the first year. And as Councillor Michelle said, provide us the option to opt out next year should we take it. At which point, if we decide there's value after this year, then I agree. We commit for the remaining 3 years. We don't keep them going year by year by year. But anyways, the reason why I initially supported it was for this term of council to determine its value. So I will be in support of the motion. Councillor Van Andriesche, I apologize. I didn't see your hand before I jumped in there for debate. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. for the amount of money, 25,000 that we're putting in, imagine if we were not to be in and we needed their support for $1 million project or something else that we would feel that SCORE could speak on our behalf. Imagine not spending the 25,000. We have to send them the right message that we're there for the long term and that we need their support. And if we're looking for them, then we should ask him to come back with SCORE and give us a rundown. But I know I remember speaking with SCORE a while ago, and there was some initiatives that they did help us with. So I think the 25,000 is very much well worth it, and I would hate to send them a mixed message. Thank you.
And to give everyone perspective, 25,000, I think, in my opinion, still counts because we debated heavily council salary and wages at 15,000. So it all is relevant and it all adds up. So anyways, that's my 2 cents. We have a motion on the floor moved by Councillor Michelle, seconded by Councillor Brunton. Everybody understands we would be opting in for this year, sending notice to opt out next year, which gives us the option to continue the discussion and debate next year. All of those in favor? And opposed? The motion is defeated, Councillor Michelle. Are there any further questions before we get to the end of our budget here? Anything that wants to be revisited? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I think this question is to the CAO. I'm just looking at sort of the last couple of pages there, the full-time equivalent summary. Al, I apologize if I'm putting you on the spot. If I am reading this correctly, according to our budget, there are 776 F.5 FTE positions in Norfolk. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, I believe that is the information that HR gave us, and that is the correct number.
Thank you. Would you have an idea of how many of those are currently vacant? And I asked the question in that, we are asking staff to do a lot. And a lot of departments we've heard over the last couple of days have significant backlog and delay, and there's lots of work to get done. And it appears to me that there's a lot of work to get done with not a full complement of staff. So I guess I'm trying to get at 2 things. A, how many positions are we currently short? And recruitment and retention has to be, in every business right now, one of the core elements that we're pushing forward. So I guess I'm sort of looking for an answer to that question. And then also, really, how are we going to propel that forward? Because there's a lot of work to get done.
Through you, Madam Chair, I do not have the number on our current vacancies, but that's something that I can request HR to send that information to council later on this week. In regards to the strategy in terms of retention, attraction, that's something that's very high on our radar. It's one of our 2023 priorities. We will be working with HR to go down this path and look at every opportunity we have to make our brand more attractive to prospective employees and to make the corporation an employer of choice so that we can hang on to the employees that we currently have. And that is a 2023 priority.
Councillor Van Andriesch, then Columbus.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. Just a question. The screen that keeps popping up here. This is real time, so this is when I'm looking at the position we're in right now. It is real time. Is that correct?
Yes, it's been updated. We were at 5.9 yesterday. We're back at 5.7 today.
Thank you.
Councillor Columbus.
My question is with respect to HR, I guess. It's we've had a number of new positions that we've passed through this budget, and also which are going to take time to fill. And also we've got several vacancies. Any comments from the CAO with respect to gapping, savings realized through gapping? Like if we don't hire those planners that we're looking at in the planning department for 3 or 4 months, I take it they've been budgeted from they passed this budget. But any comments, Mr. Menzie?
For you, Madam Chair. So for all new staff ads, we are budgeting them for 12 months. So as if they start on January 1st, We do know that they will provide some gapping and some savings. We had some discussion about this previously at Budget Committee. Any gapping savings or dollars saved, we do have a gapping policy that staff follow that allows us to use a portion of those gappings for short-term term and task positions if there's a workload and it's required. At the end of the year, if there's a surplus, we've got a policy around where that surplus goes as well, and it goes always into various reserves that we have assigned for that budgetary surplus at the end of the year.
Thank you for that.
Okay, final call on questions with, related to the budget. Councilor Breton.
Yeah, I'm not sure, how you budget nowadays, but, in terms of, it's been a relatively mild winter. I guess my question is to, Mr. Fridlin. How is the winter budget?
Through Madam Chair, to the councillor. I think, I never make predictions because I did that one time for the council and we got 3 weeks of storm. So obviously January's been fairly light. We did have a pretty good go during Christmas, but that would reflect of the past budget. So, we are, on the good side of winter for 2023 so far. I don't have exact numbers, but, events are down and call outs are down as well.
I guess my question too would be, how do you, I know how things used to work, but today in this environment, do you establish a reserve for, like maybe next winter is going to be really heavy, but how are you managing that year to year still, or do you, set up a reserve?
So Madam Chair, the councillor, finance folks can jump in, but we do not, that I know of, have a reserve. We kind of use a 3 to 5 year average and work with what is the less amount of that, and that's what we put forward for the current year.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any further hands. We have a couple of just housekeeping things to do. We had 3 items of communication. 5.1, the information memo, 2023 levy supported operating budget review. We had the discretionary items, which we dealt with, and we had the information memo, 2023 budget, federal and provincial grants, cost sharing information. Are there any questions on those items? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion to receive items, communications item 5.1 and 5.3 as information. Moved by Councillor Huffman, seconded by Councillor Berry. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, what we're going to do, although I think finance has got it together, I'm going to give them a moment to chat with clerks. We're taking a 5-minute break, 11:12, and we will come back with the final budget recommendation to lock it in and look to close that. Okay, 5 minutes. Sorry, Councillor Michelle and Van Andrishi, that was a long 5 minutes. You're still with us? Okay.
Yes, we are, Madam Chair.
All right, we've done our communications. We've went on our break. So we're going to get steps. So everybody can take a look at the screen, see the numbers, and then we're going to switch over and get staff to put up our final recommendation. Everybody ready? You can see you're ready for it to switch over. You don't need the screen anymore. Sure, a couple comments from staff.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair to council, just as a quick overview of your last day and a half. There was the adjustment from the rate budget NBI that we talked about. There was the addition of the Waterford secondary plan, the removal of the placemaking assets, the freezing of council wages, the addition of SCORE membership, the addition of the NBI for the Norfolk County Public Library, the addition of the NBI for the curator position, and the addition, or excuse me, the removal of the contribution to the council initiative reserve for 2023, which brings you to your revised net tax levy of $119,355,900, which is an increase overall over 2022 of 8% and a 5.7% increase on the median home based on an assessed value of $240,000.
Thank you for that, staff. As a reminder, what number did we start at with staff yesterday and we built up to 5.9? Do you recall? Was it 5.7? 5.6?
Yes, through the chair to council, we started with 5.7.
Okay.
Up to 5.9, back down to 5.7.
Okay, so we built it up and then dropped it down to there. Okay, thank you very much. So yes, Teresa, ready for the motion on the screen, if you wouldn't mind. Looking for a mover and a seconder for our final budget motion. Councillor Michelle, moving. Colleagues are looking up. Councillor Van Andrishi, did you have your hand up and I missed it or no? Okay, second. Are you comfortable with that, Councillor? Okay, thank you very much. Moved by Councillor Michelle, second by Councillor Van Andrishi. Staff report CS 23011, proposed 2023 levy supported operating budget be received as information, and that the 2023 levy supported operating budget with a net levy requirement of $119,355,900 be approved. Further comments, debate. That I will call the question. All those in favor? The budget is carried unanimously. Question from Councillor Breton.
Martin, I hope I'm right on this, but the education budget is not in yet for 23. Am I right on that?
Through the mayor's council, that's correct. We don't have draft rates yet.
Okay, so unfortunately, when the public see it all together, who knows what it'll be. Thank you.
Councillor Van Andrishi.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. Yes, it is a difficult budget. It is high numbers. Unfortunately, we're all going to have to react to that at home as well. Everything is increasing all around us, so it is an unfortunate situation. But we as a corporation have to work to maintain what we have and do what we can do. So it is unfortunate. It is high in my mind, but there is I think we did a good job going through it, and so it is what it is what I want to tell the public, and I know I'll be getting those phone calls, but at the end of the day, we'll have to get through this year. Thank you.
Councillor Van Passen.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Do you want to just clarify, this is the budget committee, this is the recommendation that will be
Ratified
going to
next
council?
Wednesday at council.
The 25th of January, that it is actually approved.
Yes. Everyone understood that comment? Okay. I'd like to take this opportunity to, before we adjourn, to thank staff Excellent job. So much hard work. I see your cars here in the morning. I see your cars here at night. Thank you to each and every one of you for all of your efforts. Thank you for your commitment to our reserves. It's a very comforting feeling to know that regardless when the council changes, that staff are advocating and pushing for the. So we are looking for a motion to adjourn, Councillor Huffman, at 11:35, seconded by Councillor Brunton. All those in favor? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very, very much. Have a great day, everyone.
All the best, everyone. Thank you very much. Bye now.